Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be creating some spring Easter decor DIYs using mostly items from Dollar Tree. We're going to go ahead and get started on project number 1. Using one of these plastic containers from Dollar Tree, they come 2 in a pack. They measure 6 inches in diameter across the top and 4.5 inches across the bottom. I'm going to give this 2 coats of white chalk paint in the color White Adirondack, allowing it to dry in between coats. Then I'm going to take some black chalk paint and a wet baby wipe, place my finger inside of the baby wipe, dip it into the black paint, and go around the entire rim at the top of this container to create an enamelware look. I am also going to take that same baby wipe, dip it into the black chalk paint, and create worn enamelware look on several different areas. I'm just dabbing this onto it. I don't want a perfect circle. I do want some of it to look a little bit splattered on the edges. Taking one of Dollar Tree's white pitberry garlands, I'm going to hold that up to see how wide I want to create a circle to go inside of this container. Once I determine how wide my circle should be, I'm going to wrap the end of that garland around that first strand to get my shape of my circle and the size. And then I'm going to rotate it around until I finish the entire garland and get to the end and it's nice and thick. Then I'll take that end piece and wrap it around the entire garland to hold it in place. Then I can set this down inside the center of the container. And to hold the pitberry garland in place, I'm using some Dollar Tree floral foam. So I wanted to make sure that it's the right height and the right size before I use some hot glue to glue these 2 pieces down, and that's going to hold my garland in place. Then I'll take some extra Dollar Tree floral foam in small pieces and put those all around the 2 original pieces that were placed in there to hold the garland. These are going to provide a place for me to put my floral stems, and I'm using Walmart's lavender pick. I'm going to cut the stems off the bundle and then cut a couple of those even shorter. I'm going to place these around the outside perimeter of the container, leaving the center empty as well as the front because I want to make a bird's nest. So I'm using some Dollar Tree Spanish moss, and I'm just going to form like a roll and then kind of roll that around into a circle and then push the center down and then form the outside edges to make this nest. Once I get the size I'm looking for, I'm going to place that in the center on top of the floral foam, and then I can fill in the front area with the rest of my lavender stems. To place in the nest, I am using some beautiful white birds that I used on a previous project. If you're interested in seeing that project, I'll leave that in the cards at the top of this screen as well as in my description box. But these birds came from Dollar General. They are painted with white chalk paint. And to make it match the enamelware container, I'm going to take an oil-based Sharpie and fill in both of the birds' eyes. Then I can nestle both of the birds down into the nest, and this project is finished. This is such a beautiful spring arrangement. I love how this project turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. It was so easy and so fun to make, and it looks very elegant. Let's move on to project number 2. Making this beautiful Easter tray. Using one of Dollar Tree's silver trays, I'm going to give it 2 coats of the white chalk paint. Now I am making sure I paint the outside edges in 2 coats. I only put 1 coat in the center because we're going to cover that up, but I also painted the back of it. I found this free printable on clipartlibrary.com. I'm going to leave a link to this website in my description box below if you are interested in going over there and printing this out for your project. But it is a beautiful watercolor free printable. I flipped the tray over to the back side so I could use it to press my paper around to make indentions so I'll know exactly where to cut this out, so that when I place it on the inside of the tray, it's going to fit perfectly. I always like to place it in the tray, make sure that it's cut to the right size before I attach it. Now, before I attach this, I am going to take a sanding block and go over the edges where this beautiful design on the tray is to bring that silver color out. And I'll go around the entire outside of the tray and then take a paper towel to make sure I remove any of that sanding dust before applying Mod Podge to the center of the tray. I'm putting a nice thin, even coat. You want enough Mod Podge for it to adhere your paper to, but you don't want it to be overly saturated. Then I can place the paper down inside, go around the outside edges, and then I'm using one of Plaid's rollers to kind of go over that and make sure that it is flat, free of wrinkles and bubbles. And then I'm taking the same white chalk paint and going around the edging of the paper to blend it in with the tray, and then going over it very lightly with a very small amount of paint around all of the white spaces to just make it look more natural and not like paper is just adhered to the middle of the tray. And I'll give you a closer view. It just makes it look more realistic, like it was painted on the tray. Now I did want to bring out that ring on the inside of the tray, so I'm using a lower grit sandpaper to remove that chalk paint to bring that silver ring out. And this turned out so beautiful and elegant. Again, I love how project number 2 turned out. And although I didn't plan it, it looks really beautiful with project number 1. If this is your first time visiting my channel and you are enjoying today's projects, I would love for you to stick around by clicking the subscribe button and the notification bell. To all my current subscribers, thank you so much. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. And also, I would love for you to visit me on my other social media accounts. All the links are in my description box below. Okay, for project number 3, I'm using one of Dollar Tree's round signs. I'm going to remove the tag, and then I'm going to use my hairdryer to loosen up that glue to remove the label off of the back, and then sand most of that glue away, clean that up, and then I'm going to take my favorite gray chalk paint, which is called Artifact. It's made by Decor Art, and I have this listed in my Amazon store if you are interested in that. I'm painting the center of this sign as well as those outside edges, and then I'm using one of these beautiful stencils I found at Hobby Lobby. They come 2 in a pack for $2.99, and I grabbed the closest tape that was next to me, and there was some double-sided sticky tape, which I don't recommend you use because it will pull some of your paint up. But I placed that on there to hold the stencil in place, and then I'm going to press each section down with my finger and use one of Dollar Tree's sponge brushes to gently pounce up and down to apply some white chalk paint onto this stencil and then remove it while the paint is still wet. And here you can see where I got a little bit of white paint on there, so I'm going to touch that up as well as the other side where it pulled some of the gray paint up. In the Crafter Squares section, I found this beautiful vinyl paper in this floral print. I'm going to use this to cover the top and bottom part of the sign. So I am lining it up to see how much I need to cut off, just how much I'll need for that bottom part. I'm using my Cricut cutter to make sure I cut a straight line because I want those flowers to match at the top and the bottom. Once I have that cut down, I'm going to line it up and then peel part of the backing off of it so that I can place that line straight across under the word welcome. Hold that in place and then kind of press it down. It's pretty forgiving, so if you don't get it straight the first time, you can pull it up and move it around. Once I have the line pressed down at the top, I can pull the backing off of the paper down, and then I'm using my Cricut tool to flatten everything out, but you can use a credit card or anything with a flat edge to spread that out and make sure there's no wrinkles. Then I'll flip this over, and on my cutting board, I'm going to take a utility knife and trim that excess off at the bottom. Then I'm going to repeat the same process at the top, and this is why I cut that straight edge, because I want those florals to line up at the top and the bottom. Now here I realized I did not place enough gray paint to go across here, so I'm going to go in and touch that up with the gray paint, let it dry before I go back in with the vinyl paper and repeat the exact same process I did at the bottom, creating that straight line across, pressing it down, and then I can peel that backing down so I can flip it over and trim that excess off. And what I love about this project is you don't have to use this particular print for vinyl paper. Dollar Tree has several different designs and even plain colors, so you don't have to have a Cricut to do this. You can certainly use this vinyl paper to cover some of your projects and create designs like this one. I created a hanger on the back using some hemp rope and hot glue, and I'm just lining it up with the holes for the hanger that were originally on the sign. And then I'm going to use some craft paper and a glue stick to cover the back of this to give it a finished look. I'll place that craft paper down, make sure that it's as smooth as possible, especially those outside edges and around the hanger itself. And then I can flip this over, and again on my cutting board, use my utility knife to trim the excess off. And now you'll have a nice finished look to the back. You just want to be careful when you go around the hangers not to cut your hanger off that you just applied. I'm going to create a bow using some white and gray burlap ribbon. I'm going to cut 2 pieces of each of the ribbon down to 8 inches long as well as 2 at 13 inches long. Taking the shortest one first, I'm going to fold it over to create a loop, not all the way to the bottom, almost to the bottom. You just leave a little bit hanging out. You're going to pinch that together with your fingers and hold it. Do the same thing for the other white ribbon, and then face them towards each other once you get them kind of squished together right there where the loop meets. Then I'll do the exact same thing with the 2 small gray ones and put those opposite of each other on each side of the white ribbon. Taking the longer ribbon, I'm going to fold that over about halfway. You want to leave enough for the tails. Do the exact same thing by pinching it together, and then I'm going to place the long white one behind the short gray ones, and then the long gray ones behind the short white ones, all holding it together with your hand right there where all those loops meet. Then I can take a zip tie, go around where all of the loops meet at the bottom, zip tie that together and pull it really tightly. Then I'll cut the excess of the zip tie off. Then I can separate those long tails and push those out of the way. And those shorter tails, I'm going to trim those down a bit so when I apply this to my sign, it will sit flat. Then I'm going to dovetail each one of the long tails of the ribbons. And once I have each one of those dovetailed, I can fluff out all my loops and make my bow nice and fluffy. And then I'm going to pull my tails out to the side so that I can apply this on the side of the sign using some hot glue. You'll just press that on there, let it set, and now you have a beautiful spring sign. I love how this one turned out. I hope you guys like it too. Again, you can use any kind of vinyl that you want or even scrapbook paper to create this project. Okay, for our final project in today's video, I'm using one of Dollar Tree's signs. It measures 9 inches across and 16 3/4 of an inch from the top to the bottom. I removed the bow so that when I flip the sign around, it will sit flat, and then I'm going to use one of Dollar Tree's wired Easter egg wreath forms, and going on the outside edge of that inner ring, I'm taking a black Sharpie marker and tracing around that. Then I can set the sign on top of a cutting board and use my utility knife and very slowly and very carefully go around the marks that I traced out. This will take a few times so that you make a nice score mark on your sign, and then you can break away piece by piece. And if there is a little bit left over, you can apply a little more pressure to go around those areas that are traced until you're able to take the outside edging and break it off so it has a nice clean finish. This does take a little bit of time, but just be careful and try to stay within the trace marks so that it doesn't break the sign off. Once I have all of the extra outside edging removed, I'm going to take some sandpaper and sand everything down and nice and smooth. And to remove all of that debris off of my table, I'm using my desktop mini vacuum cleaner. It comes in so handy, and I have this listed in my Amazon store in my description box below if you are interested. I'm going to give this sign 2 coats of the white chalk paint, including those outside edges, and using this beautiful window cling from Dollar Tree. If you saw my latest Dollar Tree haul, I was so excited to find this. It has the most beautiful design and colors on it. I'm going to be placing this bunny right in the middle of the Easter egg, so I lined it up where I wanted it to be. Then I'm going to fold the top half over and apply matte Mod Podge to the sign, and then I can carefully place that top piece back down and push any wrinkles or bubbles out. And then I can repeat this on the bottom half of the bunny. I'm just using a nice even coat across the entire sign. I'm going to allow that Mod Podge to dry and apply an additional layer on top of the bunny to make it look less like a window cling or a sticker. It's going to give it that nice matte finish all the way across the bunny and the sign. And you just want to make sure you try to get the majority of your brush strokes out. Using these smaller styrofoam eggs from Dollar Tree, these come 12 in a pack. I'm going to paint these to match some of the colors and the flowers on the bunny. Using Waverly's chalk paint in the color Celery, I'm going to paint 3 of these, and I did give those 2 coats. And to make a nice pastel yellow, I'm going to mix some white chalk paint with Folk Arts Lemon Yellow. Just added a dot in there. I'm going to mix it up thoroughly. It's going to give me a beautiful pastel yellow color, and I'll paint 3 of those. Now, while those were drying, I decided that the celery was a little too dark, so I'm going to dry brush some of that yellow over all of these celery colored eggs to kind of help them blend in better when we add them to our project. Then, using Apple Barrel's Pumpkin Orange, I added a dot of that to the premixed yellow paint, and I added another dot of paint to give it a nice, beautiful pastel orange color. I'm going to paint 3 of those. And for the final 3 eggs, I am mixing white chalk paint with Cameo Pink. And I like to start off with the lighter color because I can add more if I need to. Once I have those all painted in the colors that I like, I'm going to take this wreath form and I'm going to wrap it in some burlap ribbon. This ribbon came from Dollar General. So I am going to place the ribbon behind the wreath form, fold it over, and hot glue itself to the back part of the ribbon as well as the wire form. You have to wait until that hot glue cools before you can proceed so it doesn't come up or come apart. I'm going to fold it over and overlap it as I'm going to the right-hand side of the wreath form. So I'm going to overlap it about halfway or maybe a little more and pulling it tight as I go so I don't need to glue anything until I get to the end of this ribbon. So this is about a 5-foot roll. Now, as I'm getting to the end, part of my wreath form broke. So in case yours does that, what I did was just take some duct tape and it taped that back together, and any other places that may have come apart, I will tape those up as well. Then I can continue to wrap my ribbon until I get to the end of the roll, and then I can glue it to itself. Make sure you do it on the back side so you don't see these seams. And then I can take my second roll of burlap ribbon and apply it. Now I have turned it around where the point of the egg is towards me, and I'm going to apply the ribbon on the backhand side, and I'm going to fold it over and overlap it back up to the end that I started. So the reason I started back around where the pointed end is because I want all of these openings facing up when I flip my wreath form over. And this will make a little bit more sense when we get ready to add our greenery to it. When I get to the end, again, I'm going to make sure that I glue it on the backhand side of the wreath form so you don't see these seams, and let that glue cool and set before proceeding. I'm going to cut that excess ribbon off and flip it over. So this is how it's going to look. So it has all those openings facing from the bottom up to the top. Now I can place my sign right on top of the wreath form, and I'm going to do that using some hot glue. Once I have that in place, I will press firmly, and then I'm going to flip it over, and add a little bit more hot glue to the seams to the back to make sure that it stays in place. To decorate mine, I'm using this beautiful pick from Hobby Lobby. It has some beautiful greenery and white flowers on it, and I'm going to cut all the stems off of the bundle, and I'm going to be placing the ends of the stems into the burlap, and I want it to start from the bottom and all of the greenery and flowers moving up towards the top of the wreath form. So as I'm placing the stem in there, I'm going to bend them around to create the shape of the egg form, and then place them periodically as I go up, some on the inside towards the sign and some on the outside toward the outside part of the wreath. Once I have all my greenery in place around and have it formed the way I want it, I'm going to take some floral wire to attach these. So I'm going to pull those stems apart until I find the base where two of the stems meet, and then I can put the floral wire through the burlap and then cross it over top of the two stems, moving those stems out of the way. And then I can pull it really tightly on the back after I pull that other side through the burlap, twist it around really tightly. I'll cut that excess off, and then I'm going to take my pliers and roll it over and tuck it back down into the burlap so it doesn't scratch anything. I will continue to do that around the entire wreath until I have all of those bundles attached. And for the bottom part, I'm going to cut some of those flower stems off into single pieces and place those inside of the holes on the burlap, some going on each direction going up, and then the others in the opposite direction going up until I get it full. Then I'm going to take those styrofoam eggs and place those throughout, and I'm just laying it out to see where I want them to be, playing around with the design and the colors. And once I have them where I want them, I'm going to attach each one of those to the wreath form using hot glue and hold it in place for a few seconds to make sure the hot glue sets up and your eggs don't come off. Then you can fluff all of your branches out around your eggs, and at the bottom, if you need to, you can go ahead and add more greenery. But this project is done, and I absolutely love how this turned out. I think it is so beautiful. It looks so high-end. This bunny is absolutely gorgeous. You guys let me know what you think of today's projects, and if you have a favorite, please let me know in the comments down below. I always love to know which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Please take care, and I will see you next time.